Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining today's HPE Aruba Networking Central Power Up webinar. In this session, we're going to focus on two core capabilities, being central configuration, and also importing and managing floor plans. Throughout today's webinar, we'll be using demonstrations to show you exactly how these features work and how to apply them in your environments. We'll start by walking through the key elements of central configuration. How do I set it up? Navigating the workflows and the best practices that will help you build a consistent, well-managed network. From there, we'll move into floor plans, where you'll see how to import the floor plans, place the devices, and use the visual tools to gain better insight and control across your sites. By the end of this session, we hope that you'll have a much stronger understanding of these essential functions and be better equipped to optimize your deployments with HPE Aruba Networking Central. Before we get started, a little bit of housekeeping. Today's webinar is being recorded. We'll be sending out a link to the recording and the slides. Please do post your questions into the Q&A. We have a number of expert panelists waiting in the background. And if you'd like to say hi, please reach out via the chat. Alternately, let us know how you're feeling or thinking by using the React option. Now let's meet our speakers. Firstly, Miguel Guerra, Principal Technical Marketing Engineer, and Ramaya Shianani, Manager Product Management. Hey, Miguel, over to you.
I'm going to go ahead and create a site in New Central because we now have the ability to do that. So creating the site here. Trying to see which is the one that I needed to create. Give me 1 second here. All right. So I'm going to do the same thing here, creating a site on in New Central. I'm going to just do Singapore 3 for the sake of this demo. Address 1050. Here in New Central is going to start to auto-populate. That's totally the wrong address that I have listed, but I'm going to just click on this one to just show you what it would do. Okay, so we would click save. And then we have that done. So now, before I go to create profiles, I'm going to stop here and switch over to the slides again. To just do a quick, to quickly go over inheritance. So this presentation that I'm doing, though, it is related to AOS 8, from AOS 8 campus mode to AOS 10, but the hierarchy portion and the inheritance, it all relates to what we're talking about today, right? So here we have a few European sites. So for those that are familiar with it, in the validated solution guides, Orange Widget Logistics is our fictional corporation that we use as a customer site or just a company. And right now, this is the example that we're going to use. Now, let's say that OWL, Orange Widget Logistics, has a division in Europe, and we have three folders beneath the OWL. The OWL folder would be your top level folder, where configuration that you add there, right, gets inherited by everything below it. And then right below that, you have 3 folders. Below that, you have more folders. and then the devices under it. Okay, so configuration applied here. Let's say you put three global SSIDs, a .1x SSID, a pre-shared key, and a guest SSID, and you want that to go all the way across. You would typically apply it there. Gets inherited by everybody, right? If you want to create a fourth SSID that's only for the corporate headquarter building, right, or for the campus, you would apply it there, and all three of the buildings in that campus would get it. And then in the distribution centers, if they had their own special SSIDs, they would go there, or any other settings that you needed to apply there, VLANs, what have you. And retail stores the same way, right? This is how you would typically manage it in AOS 8. Now, in AOS, so this is just another way of looking at it. Now, in AOS 10, and I'm rushing through a few of these because I want to make sure that at least I can show you a little bit more of the configuration in New Central. And here in AOS 10, it looks different than AOS 8 Mobility Conductor UI, but there's a lot of similarities here. The inheritance works very similarly. It's a matter of looking at it. I would look at AOS 8 from the top down, and AOS 10 or New Central would look at it from the bottom up. And by that, I mean that let's say you have your devices. Like I mentioned before, your devices need to be assigned to sites, right? So these devices, let's say they're assigned to sites. We have three buildings in Barcelona, bar 1, 2, and 3. And then you have Milan, Rotterdam, London, Madrid, and Paris. So any configuration that you would add to the sites would be inherited by all devices that belong to those sites. And now let's say you want to have common sites. So Barcelona, we create site collections. So Barcelona headquarters would be one site collection, and all buildings in Barcelona headquarter campus would belong to that. Distribution centers, you would group them. So you would have Milan and Rotterdam distribution centers as part of this site collection, and then the retail stores on the right. So configuration that you apply to each one of those site collections would be inherited by the sites and the devices that belong to those sites. And then anything applied to global goes across the entire organization. The concept of OWL within global here is I just did it to illustrate, and so you can make the connection, but you don't create anything like any containers or anything like that in that scope in global. It is just global. Right. Now, if we look at how inheritance works, we want to look at how inheritance works. The library is where everything resides. All the shared profiles you would find there, as long as they're shared. The four scopes below that, I consider those as top-down hierarchy. And then I'm calling it the layered scope myself. We're thinking it'll be a different name, but the point of this layered scope is that it's not the same top-down hierarchy, as it doesn't apply the same way as the others. It is similar. Let me show you what I mean. So inheritance, again, from the top down. Precedence. So if there's a conflict in configuration, right? Device wins always. So the most specific configuration, the closest to the device would win. And this is where device groups get a little interesting. Something to consider is that device groups, you could have devices, APs here, 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 and across everywhere belonging to a single group. Or you could have multiple device groups belonging to just a single building, right? So the other thing is that I added these weights to indicate which one has more weight in when it comes to a conflict. And device groups fits between sites and devices. So if there's a conflict between uh, device groups and sites, device groups wins if if the device is here, for example, belong to this group. It sounds, hope I'm not confusing you. Like I said, it'll hopefully it'll be a little bit clearer in a second here. So this is in this practical example, I'll show you it'll be through a few slides here. I'll show you what I'm talking about. So let's say we have a WLAN that's configured at the global level. That'll be inherited by all sites. If you take a role and you apply it to the retail to the retail site collection. It'll go to all the sites in that belong to that site collection. And a VLAN that you would configure in a single site would go to just that particular site. Now, if you have a test VLAN, let's say we want to create a test VLAN for a single AP and apply it to just one corner of the warehouse in Rotterdam. And then this is a perfect use case. This is something that happens often. I've deployed prior to being at Aruba, I deployed for customers, and we would see this, right? And I was internal IT where we also, before that, where we also would do this. So we're staging, let's say the retail stores are going to receive brand new guns, right? Brand new handheld scan guns. So we would create the SSID in the warehouse to stage everything. Everything was shipped over to the warehouse. We've pre-configured it all. We're going to roll out a brand new SSID. So we create that test WLAN for that single AP. Now we go over, I see raise hands.
Let's continue. Please do post your questions into the Q&A.
Okay, thank you. I'll continue. So when we assign it to here, the purpose of assigning it to here is to test everything. But the other thing to consider is this is where I like the hierarchy, just like in AOS 8 campus mode, is that you now have the ability, as long as you created that WLAN profile as shared, it will automatically appear in the library. So now all you have to do to deploy it at all the stores is go to the library and assign it to that retail site collection, and all the sites, all the retail sites that belong to that site collection will start broadcasting that WLAN. Now, if we take uh, for the device group example that I was talking about, here's a way that you would assign multiple device, a reason or a use case for assigning multiple device groups to a single building. And this is just like AP groups, right? In a controller-based deployment. So you would have let's say this warehouse environment has office, warehouse, and outdoor APs. So you have your DC3 office APs, which is the group that I created earlier. And then you have your DC3 warehouse APs that would have different SSIDs and different power settings as well, because you'd have a totally different RF design. And then outdoor, which would also have a different RF design, right? A lot more sparse. You wouldn't have it as high density as the office. So this is where you would have three different groups at a single site. Now, the way that you would see it the opposite way, where you would have multiple sites assigned to a single group, is in this example, in the headquarters, right? We define this as having a campus, just a campus. Three buildings. So the lower floor gets HD high density RF design. So we would have enough APs to cover the areas in there just because of the floor plan, the client requirements. That's all we ended up configuring. But all the upper levels, let's say, would have open floor plan, wireless first design. So really high density. So the RF, the signal will propagate a lot further. So you would need to do it a little bit tighter and change your data rates. This is where these device groups would allow you to do that. So let's say you assign all of the device groups. So all of the APs in all three buildings to that device group there, they would all inherit those settings. So they could still take the SSIDs that were applied specifically to the Barcelona headquarters, and then you would just override RF, for example, here. Okay. And retail, same thing. This is just a single group for all your sites. This is just an example of what you can do. You can do it many different ways. Just one to be able to show you how that would look. Now I'm going to go back here and create a profile. So I'm going to go to the library. I'm going to create an NTP profile. So I'm going to go to System, Go to NTP server, create profile. Okay, so we created that profile. At the moment, it sits in the library and there's no device function or scope assigned yet. Okay, so if we want to assign that to something, we come in here and say assign. I want to assign this to campus access points. I want to select the scopes. If you want that to be across across all your entire organization, you could just assign it to global. For this, I'm going to just assign it to the site. And I'm going to say Singapore 2, add. And this is telling you to make sure that you reboot the device for everything to sync. Standard. Okay. Something to note here, this is one of those profiles that it can only exist, you can only have one of these, right, assigned to a site or to a specific scope. So if this is global, earlier I tried to assign one to global and it barked at me. So just know that it will not allow you to create a second one like that. These are defaults, but this one here, it only allowed me to create the one. You could override. So let's say you set a global one, and then you could go down in the hierarchy and assign it to others. Like in here, you can see that this was assigned to a couple of test sites that I was doing. Okay, and now how you would see that looks like, come here, Singapore 2. And here's the profile, and you can see it's shared. I am going to take a moment to show you something that I think it's really important um that you're aware of. Okay, so let's say you want to change something here. Um, let's say something in global, and it's assigned. You have it here. It's inherited from the global level. If you make a change to this, let's say I want to edit this, change it to an IP address, for example, right? Exit. So it's going to warn you that making a change here will apply, will make changes because it's a shared profile. If you make the changes now, it will impact, well, let's say it came from global, it will impact directly that profile. So you have to be aware of that if you make a change, just watch these messages. Um, we're working on, well, I put in a request, made this aware to the product group, and they're going to make an update so it doesn't just simply allow you to make that change, because this can impact your org. I mentioned that I used to be internal IT, so having been level 1 support, and getting access to something like this, and first learning to do the configuration, um, learning to do networking, as a new junior engineer, making a change, not being aware, being nervous and not being aware of everything that's here, somebody can click and potentially change something upstream. So just be very aware of that. Uh, it's going to be similar to an AOS 8, where if you make a change up higher level in the hierarchy, you could impact a lot of people. So just be aware of that. Um, but yeah, this is one example. Uh, Time check. How much time do we have left? I know that Ramya, we were going to split it. I can walk through the sites and the site collections real quick and then hand it over to Ramya. Give me 5 more minutes, Ramya, and then I'll hand it over to you.
Would work. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So for the sites, I want to show you something here. So in this, I have Barcelona headquarters, distribution, and retail. So these are the site collection and the sites between they belong to. As long as the sites that belong to them, sorry, are bar 1, bar 2, 3, and then Milan, Rotterdam, London, Madrid, and Paris. So if we go here, go to site collections, we're going to see distribution. I've already assigned 2 sites to it. So by clicking that list button, I can see what sites belong to distribution. You see it Milan, DC, and Rotterdam, DC. Barcelona headquarters. Has the 3 sites. I think this is the one that I didn't create. Okay, so create site collections. What did I say we called it? Retail. So by creating the site collection here, selecting my sites, the sites for the stores were London, Madrid, and Paris. Create. And then here is the retail site collection. And then you would see the sites listed there. Okay. And again, like I mentioned, that the workflow that I demonstrated here today, this is just a small portion of a real world deployment, migration. So make sure that just be aware, right? People that have done this before, you'll know that you have to do your discovery first, uh, pre-configure everything, make sure that you've tested it, test association authentication, make sure that everything works before you start moving your production environment over. Okay, and now I'm going to give you a couple more slides with the QR codes that I promised. So here's the first one. I'll end with this, okay? So the first one is this is the latest central VSG section. This QR code is going to take you here. This was published about 2 weeks ago. So it's going to go over all new central content configuration examples. It's not, it's still a work in progress. There's more, but as you can see, there's examples, and some of the content that I just presented to you today is here. And then this QR code is for the WLAN TME's tech docs page. So in here, what I just walked through in creating the sites, I took some of it from the VSG. WLAN TME has it here as well. And I forgot that these were videos that I embedded in here, so I could just walk you through and show you some of those steps. You'll be able to follow those steps here yourself. And we work, closely together. The solution TME team that I belong to, we work closely together with the product teams, WLAN TME, and we work on this content to make sure that we're technically aligned. And they're great at letting me know if I need to update something right away. So we have a pretty good relationship, and we try to keep this as updated for you as possible to prevent the headaches that I myself and my team used to encounter deploying with the confusion of where we're going to find the documentation. The third one here is hopefully everybody's familiar with this one, is the campus migrate section. We have everything, including from planning to step-by-step example of how to do discovery, what you need to gather from a campus mode deployment, new central readiness, which is something that also what I just touched on earlier. And then I was trying to we're trying to get one, I was trying to get one more in production. It's not here, but the fourth, which is the fourth one, this one's a repeat. I couldn't update it. But that one is really just a consolidation of the YouTube videos that were published recently for the VSG. We call them VSG expanded. There's four migration videos where I walk through the discovery and a few other tips and tricks that I think would be very useful for anybody doing migration. Uh, I hope you could use them. While Rami is doing some demoing, I'm going to see if I can share a link if that page is finally live, because I try to push it through at the end of this afternoon today. It's 10:40 p.m. my time. So at 5 o'clock I try to push it. Was hoping that it would be live. And it wasn't yet, so I'll check. Uh, and that's it
Now,
for me.
thank you. Just before we do switch to Ramian, there was a quick question. You earlier in the demonstration, you created a Singapore site 2 and 3. Could you just quickly go back and recap where the access point ended up? And because I think
Oh
we
yeah.
were looking at Singapore site 2, and then all of a sudden we had Singapore site 3.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah, I know. I was flying through this. So in this, if you go to sites, Singapore 2. So site 3 I created in New Central and I didn't move anything to it yet. It was just that I had when I was trying to update the address for site 3, when I created Singapore 3 because I was trying to create a brand new site in New Central. Apologies for the confusion. When I when I went to create it, the address that I had noted when I was preparing for this demo that worked in Classic, it wasn't being recognized here as it was earlier. So that's why I just named it 3 and
Okay.
used the address I had. That's all. Um, and the site that device ended up in Singapore 2 because I moved it at the beginning of the demo. I moved it in Classic Central.
So we would have set up all of the policies and the profiles. And then the next step is to create those transition groups in Classic Central and then move devices into those transition groups. And then they would pick up all of the policies that we have created in the configuration overview that you're showing now.
As long as they are assigned appropriately,
Yeah.
right? So when we're talking about the site collections, if you create the sites, the way that you would do this really is you would prepare the site, you would create the sites. The way that I would do this in a real deployment is creating the sites first. Okay, then I would create the site collections, assign the sites to the site collections, leave that there, and then I would go to the library and create the profiles there as much as I can in the library, just because it's one place to keep it neat. Because we do have the difference in profiles where it's shared and local. If it's a local profile, you won't see it in the library. So if somebody, in haste doesn't realize they checked the box that says make it a local profile, then you end up searching for it in the library and you won't find it there. So I would suggest starting at the library. It's a recommendation, but it doesn't have to be there. You can create profiles at a site level, and then as long as it's shared, it would appear in the library. And I walked through that in the slides. But it's not, they won't automatically, the devices or the sites will not automatically take the configuration from the library unless you specifically assigned it to the device type and to that particular, to whatever, whether it's the site collection or the site directly, right? By sites, it all depends on what scope things were assigned to. Does that make
Thank you.
sense?
I think in the chat, it'd be great if you just put step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. and then we can link to the VRDs as well.
Okay. I'll pull up. What I'll do is I'll see if I can find the direct link that walks you through those in the VSG, and it'll give it to you in more detail. Okay.
Fantastic.
Okay.
Thanks, Rama. Thank you, Miguel. Hi, Rama. Over to you.
Hello. Good morning, good evening, everyone. I'm going to share my screen. All right. Again, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I am Ramya Shayini, and today I'm going to present how we migrate floor plans from Classic Central to Central. So New Central is now moving forward. We'll just call the New Central as Central, and Classic will continue to be called as Classic Central. So what am I going to cover today? So first, I'll talk about migrating visual RF floor plans. So that is what we used to call it earlier. How do we migrate visual RF floor plans from Classic Central to Central? And this can be done at two levels, which is a site level migration and a global level migration. So I'll demo both of them. Then we'll talk about how do we import floor plans from Airwave or our third-party partners like Ekahau or Hamina. I'll do a demo on how do we bring Hamina into Central. The process is the same, be it for Airwave, Ekahau, or Hamina. The import step is same across all three platforms. And lastly, I'll also demo how we create new floors and buildings in Central, and how do we add APs. I'll also give a quick demo on autolocate. All right. Before I get started with the demo, I have a few slides that talk about where the migration step is triggered from and what are the caveats. So for a site level, the step will be at a site under the Actions button, whereas for global migration, it's under the hamburger under floor plan management, and you would see a migrate option if there are existing floor plans in Classic Central. A few caveats for global and site level migration. So for all types of migrations or floor plan edits or imports, write access is required. With read-only access, with read-only access, none of these actions are permitted. So this is one big thing that I keep seeing, that we do miss giving the right access to the admins. The next one is migration at a site level or at a global level is a one-time operation. So, and we use the most recent backup. Backup is a nightly job that is done by Central itself, by Classic Central itself, where we back up all the floor plans every night. So it's not a user driven or a user triggered backup. So we take the most recent backup and we migrate that, be it at a site level or at global level. And let's say when there is a site already in Central, and this site has buildings, but you still trigger migration from Classic Central to this one, to New Central, the buildings will be appended to, the old buildings from Classic Central will be appended to the buildings in Central. So we don't overwrite it or anything, we just append it to whatever we have in Central. And once the migration process completes, any changes made to Classic Central will not sync with Central. And if there are any changes made to Classic after migration, we highly recommend using the export and import method to add them to Central. Again, another thing is migration doesn't support retries. So in case the migration fails, please reach out to TAC and they should be able to jump on it and help you re-trigger the migration and make sure that it goes on well. So let me quickly jump into the demo. This is our QA's demo account, so I'll be using this account for migration. There are already some sites available here. Let's go ahead and see how migration works at this site. This is called Migration 1. To launch the floor plan manager, once we click on the site or when the site is at the nucleus or the sun, you can click on the location icon to launch floor plan manager. And the actions button, there is a migrate option to trigger migration. Before I trigger, I do want to show how the floor plans look on Classic Central. So let's go back to Classic Central and go to that site. I think I'm already at that site. Yes. And then when I go to floor plan, it shows you that there is one floor, floor 1, and it has 5 access points. This is how this floor looks like. This is the position of the access points, and there are some walls and things like that. So migration should move all of these and its attributes into Central. So now let me go back to Central. And under this site, I'll go ahead and trigger migration. So under actions, I'll click migrate. There is a warning message. This covers the caveats that I just spoke about. So I'll go ahead and click migrate here. So once I click migrate, it'll take a few minutes for the floor plan to actually move from Classic Central to New Central. So let's give it a second. It'll just take just about a few seconds for it to come in. And there is also a banner on top that tells you that floor plan migration is in process. The other thing that I do want to mention is we can also exit out of this screen, go to any other troubleshooting workflows or monitoring workflows, and come back here. So the session will be intact and the migration will be running in the background. All right, so the floor successfully migrated, and let me just double click on it to launch the floor plan. And yes, this is the floor plan, and we can zoom in and zoom out, and we see that all the access points have been moved as well, along with its names. This one is a planned AP, and all the others with colors are live access points. There are various layers here, which we can pick and choose. We can change it from signal strength to channel occupancy and see which channels the APs are on. Let me go back to signal strength. There is also a cutoff, which tells you how the signal cutoff looks when you change the value. So these are some useful troubleshooting steps that we've added to visualize how the network looks on the floor plan. Now this takes care of our site level migration. Let me now jump to global. As I was mentioning before, to trigger global, it's under this hamburger menu. Under hamburger, there is a widget for floor plan management. This launches the content for floor plan. And on top, you see that there is a banner that tells you that there is content available on Classic Central to be migrated. So let me go ahead and trigger the migrate here. Again, we do have a banner, or we do have a pop-up that tells you that changes made post-migration will not be reflected in Central. So I'll go ahead and click migrate here. So this is the summary that tells you that how migration is progressing. When we click on view summary, it tells you how many sites have been migrated. It was pretty quick. It already migrated 6 out of 8 sites that we have. And yes, so we successfully finished the migration of all the 8 sites. Migration of floor plans of all the 8 sites. So now when I go back and go to another site, we should see floor plans for them that have been moved from Classic Central to Central. So, so that was global. And a few things to note about global. Again, only sites which have existing backup floor plan from Classic Central will be migrated. Sites without any data, they will be left untouched. The tracker that I showed you, the summary view, shows you the progress, where you can see how many sites at this tenant level have been migrated. And also the migration, this is for both site level and global, everything gets migrated. That includes the floor plan images, the AP details and its locations, planned APs, the walls, the attenuation of the walls, zones, and the boundaries that were drawn in Classic Central. I've also added some metrics here that tells us how long it actually took in our QA environment to migrate. This is just for reference. So an account with about 50 sites and 750 floors across these 50 sites, there were about 10,000 APs across these 750 floors. It took about an hour to complete migration. So not always migration would take us just 30 seconds. So it takes about an hour. And depending upon how big and how complex the deployment is, that it's proportionate to that for migration. Now that covers the migration piece. I also want to talk about importing. So as you know, we do support importing out of Airwave and Classic Central. You can just, we support export out of Airwave and Classic Central. And these floor plans can be brought into New Central. So there's a zipped file that gets created once we export. And this zipped file can be easily imported to New Central. We also support third-party import, which is Ekahau and Hamina. Hamina was recently added as of last month. And again, we import everything. We import floor plan images, AP locations, and all the other attributes that come as part of the floor plan images. There are a few notes, like if there is no matching wall type, then what do? Then we default it to a drywall and things like that. And Hamina does not have floor numbers, so we actually auto number it. And another thing to note is all of these operations can be done using UI, or even they can be done using our APIs as well. So we are an API first deployment as well. So let's go and see how importing actually works. I'll actually switch to another account. Actually, let me just try this account itself. So I'll go ahead and say create floor. And then it's actually the other operation. It's an import floor operation. So I'll go ahead, import floor, select a file. I have a Hamina file ready. So I'll go ahead, choose that zipped file and open it. And then when I say next, the wizard actually takes us to the step 2. It should be coming up in just a second. Yeah, so this is the summary that shows up in second step. There are about 4 floors here that we are bringing in from Hamina, and these are the names of the floors itself. Hamina also does not have a building name, so the project name is what we use as the building name. So in this step, we can also move the floors between buildings. We can actually create another building and move the floor to that building. And let's say this is an office space. I'll go ahead and click finish. So the last 3 buildings will actually be assigned to sample auditorium, and the first floor will be assigned to webinar. So the last 3 floors are going to sample auditorium, and the first one will actually go to webinar. So let's go ahead and click finish. All right. So we were able to, within the 2 steps, we were able to bring in Hamina's floor plan into Central. And this is how they look. As you can see here, we've imported all of them, the floor plan, the walls, zones, and everything. Everything converted into a planned access point because the inventory of this account does not have any details of these access points. If this account already had access points matching with the names that are coming in from Hamina, these access points would be converted into live APs. So that takes care of the import using Hamina or from Ekahau or from Airwave or even using Classic Central. Now let me just shift and I'll show you how to create floor plans from the scratch in New Central, and I'll also show you how to use AutoLocate. I'm gonna switch. All right, so I'll go ahead and use my test site, which is United University. Okay, so to launch floor plan, I'll go ahead and click on the location icon. So under actions, I will go ahead and create a floor. Now this floor can be created against any building. We can also create a new building in this floor. So I'll go ahead and call this test. And I will add it to a new building called Anderson Management. I'll call it floor number 3. And I will select a file. I think I have a file. Yes, I'll go ahead and use our corporate office's floor plan. Okay, so once we do this, we'll have to geolocate the floor plan to scale it. That is an important step for AutoLocate to work. There are few knobs that we have to enable for AutoLocate to work. One is 80 megahertz has to be enabled, FTM has to be enabled. Everything is mentioned in the documentation. So I'll go ahead and pass on the links for the documentation where all the details for AutoLocate and floor plan are there. So to AutoLocate, we have these targets on the floor plan. So once we place the targets on the floor plan image, we can do the same by placing them on the map itself. I'll go ahead and do that. You can zoom in and zoom out for precision. And then once you hit finish, okay. Yeah, so the new building came up and the new floor came up, floor 3. And this is how it looks. And yeah, we can either place APs, sorry, give me a second. We can either place APs using our plan, using assign devices step, or, if this is a brand new setup, you can also plan your access point deployment. You can do either manual planning or automatic planning. So manual planning, you just drag and drop the APs onto the floor plan. You can pick a prefix. By default, it takes the floor name as the prefix. You can drag and drop the APs and plan your deployment. You can figure out how many APs you need to optimize the network on this floor. Now, automatic operation is also quite simple. When you switch between manual to automatic, the changes will get discarded because I didn't proceed to the next step. But in the next step, you can actually go ahead and save it. But for now, I'll go ahead and discard everything and choose automatic optimization. By default, we are using AP 635s, and we plan to change the default APs as and when there is a better AP available by us. And you can also select which bands you want to choose for your coverage. For now, I'll just go ahead and use 5 gig. You can mention how well you want the coverage to be. Should it be, poor? I'm sure nobody will choose poor. but fair, good, or excellent. So for this demo, I'll just go ahead and use fair. And client density, I'll go ahead and say maybe low, because I just want this to finish within the demo time. So I'll go ahead and click, maybe I'll go ahead and say medium, and I'll click next. All right, so it just told me that there's only one access point needed to cover all of this because of the coverage that I used. And also the way I scaled, it all depends upon how big the floor plan is. So we can go ahead and hit finish. And this is the planned AP data that we have. Now, let me show you how auto-locate works. So let's say there is an existing floor plan. Let's say there is an existing floor or a building or a site with APs, and we want to make sure that we are placing all the APs in the right location. So we can either manually drag and drop the APs. So the step to actually assign access points to your floor is under actions. And the step is called place devices. So the first step is assign devices, where you assign devices from your inventory to the floors. I've already done that. I've already added 5 access points to floor 1. So I'll exit out of that and we'll straight away jump to place devices. Today, we only support access points on the floor plan, but in the roadmap, we also have wired devices, in the sense switches coming up. We plan to show wired devices, wired clients as well, and the wiring piece as well. So let's continue with the automatic placement. So I'll go ahead and select automatic placement. And this will take just about a few seconds for the algorithm or the engine to pick 4 best access points out of the list. So the minimum for autolocate to work is 5 APs. Anything lesser than 5 APs will not be available, or the algorithm will not run if there are less than 5 APs. So the algorithm chose 4 best APs. For anchoring. So these are called anchor access points. So all the admin has to do is place these 4 access points on the floor plan. And based on the position of these 4 access points, all the position of all the other access points is calculated, and it will be they will show up on the floor plan. So I'll go ahead and hit next. So we did have a 5th access point that should be positioned. I think the location of that is in the center of the floor plan. Yeah. At this step, if there are any changes, you can actually go ahead and move the access point. Or if they are completely out of sync, you can actually go ahead and redo the whole positioning of your anchor access point. So I'll go ahead and hit finish. And these are all the 5 access points that were assigned to the site, and this was the auto-located access point. So this step really comes in handy when you have hundreds of APs that you'll have to place. So if you have to do it manually, you'll have to drag and drop all the 100 APs and place them. So there's a chance of erroring. So this actually takes care of all of that. So this completes the autolocate piece. I do want to say that when we are creating new floors, there are a few things. For import, we do support zipped and ESX files. And we can go anywhere between -50 to 350 floors. So we can have underground floors as well. So that is supported up to 50. Please let me know if you have more than, if any customer requires underground to be more than 50, we can go ahead and always increase these numbers. Maximum floors per building are actually 350. And the default ceiling height whenever we are creating a floor is 10 feet or 3 meters. We also currently support the feet and meters, both the units. This was not there a year ago, but we were able to introduce that. Also, the size, the floor plan image itself, the max that we support is 10 MB, and the scale is 10 kilometers by 10 kilometers. We also support CAD layers, and we support about 1,000 layers in each file. I've also added the links for all the documentations, how each of these steps actually go on, how each of these steps are triggered, and what are the caveats and what are the requirements for each of these steps. And there is an FAQ section also that talks about all the questions that we've been asked, and there's an FAQ section that I've added the link. So that concludes my presentation. Let me actually see what the questions are.
We have a few questions here. I think some of them we can probably take live. So the first one, do we need 4 APs per floor or per building?
That's for autolocate, it's 4 APs per floor. Autolocate works at a floor level.
Yes, we'll be posting the recording as well, so I'll answer that one. If we're using Classic Central, are we able to use this floor plan features of New Central the same way we were able to use other features of Central?
That's correct. Everything is included in the foundation license itself. So everything and much more is there in New Central.
Okay, I think that is all of the open questions. Given that we do have a few minutes left, it would be good if we could touch on a couple of the new features that we have recently released.
With regards to floor plan, or this is all of Central?
If we think about potentially agentic.
Sure. But another thing, because you brought up, I do want to mention that there were a few changes that we introduced, which is called, as you notice here, there is no time travel. Do you want me to talk about time travel as well?
Please. I think it'd be great for everyone to see features that have recently, as in the past 2 weeks, being added to the dashboard.
Sure. So I quickly want to talk about the absence of time picker on top, be it at a site level or even a device level. If you go, you will notice that there is an absence of time picker. This has relocated into this new tab, which is called the Health Metrics view. And the monitoring view, this we're going to call the bento box view as the monitoring view, and this is going to be the health metrics view. We now have the 3-hour health status. And when we go to health metrics, here is when you can actually go back in time, pick any 30 minutes in the last 30 days. This was not available before. You can pick any 30 minutes or even 40 minutes. It can be a custom duration that you can pick. And you will see all the KPIs below for that duration. So this is a brand new thing that came out as of this week. And what this is trying to tell you is this access point has an issue with the system KPIs, and the sympathetic highlighter below kind of shows you where the problem is. So we've broken down all the KPIs for access points, gateways into these sections. And when we go into the system, it tells you that the overall health of system has been red. It's because of AP memory utilization. And as you can see, the sympathetic highlighter shows you that there is an alert for it also. When you click on the alert shows up in the side panel. It lists down all the alerts, all the major and critical alerts that this access point has at that time. And you can navigate to that alert to see what's going on and what the root cause is and the next action. Similarly, for a site, we've changed the layout of the site as well. We've added the new client onboarding piece, which talks about how the clients are doing at the site. So just 1 out of the 3 clients have completed all the 4 steps. So this is telling you that the 2 clients actually completed the association. Out of these 2 clients, the 2 clients that completed association, both the clients completed authentication and they completed DHCP, but just one of them successfully completed DNS as well. And that is how we are showing you the breakdown of client onboarding. You can actually go ahead and see how various steps looks like. There's a breakdown of client onboarding by client type, by client model. You can pick any of these classifications and go to the trend view that shows how the trends of the failed, delayed, successful, and the total attempts are. So this is a pretty cool feature. You can see the breakdown by each of these steps as well. And yeah, so that is the new client onboarding card that we have. And I also want to talk about the new health metrics view of site. This shows you the overall health of access points at the site's clients. If the site had gateways and switches, they would also show up as additional rows. I'll go ahead and change this to a 1-day view where it tells you how access points and clients are doing. The tooltip for the first part shows you that 5 out of 5 access points have poor health. Both the clients, 2 out of 2 clients, which is 100%, have good health. Now, if we want to see the list of access points that are actually failing, I think there is a glitch here, but the side panel would open up and show you the list of access points with poor health. These are all the alerts that we have for these 5 access points. So this is how we use the new health metrics to actually troubleshoot the issues. The sympathetic highlighter, I think, is pretty cool, where it's showing the cause and effect, everything on the same page. And the goal of this was to make sure that everything stays in one page. And we've also tried to convert all the KPIs that we have into for all the device types and entities. We've converted all the KPIs into histograms, so you can actually see how the KPI is changing over time. Another thing that I do want to talk about is config health. We have this widget on the main NOC page itself that talks about how the configuration health is across devices. I think it tells you how many devices are there, how many of them are out of sync, how many of them are synced with limitations. Anything that you see in bold is actually clickable. So when you go into, when you click on it, it takes you to the config health audit itself, where it tells you what the latest state is and when did it go out of sync. So these are some of the new features that came up as of this week. Yeah.
Did you also want to touch on the agentic?
Agentic, I'm not super comfortable with the demo. Is it possible for us to schedule something else so that we do a full-fledged session on agentic and search and the enhancements that we did with Copilot?
Of course. So just on the agentic, that does require an advanced license, agentic and Copilot, is that correct?
Agentic, yes, that is part of our advanced license.
Excellent. Okay, I think we have a couple of questions outstanding, and then we would be ready to wrap up. So one of them is, how does Central log migration errors, and are they detailed enough for root cause analysis?
Yes, we are actually working on adding full-fledged migration errors so that we can actually troubleshoot it ourselves and make sure that we fix. But please try and note that migration is not going to be here forever. I think once all the customers actually migrate, we're going to just remove that feature. So that was also one of the reasons why we didn't want to invest a lot in a step which we are going to just throw away in the next few months. But yeah, I think that is a really good way of seeing where the migration failed. So the summary box in the global migration itself tells us how many we migrated. So for now, that is what we have.
Thank you. And Raphael just posted a comment about the Copilot, so please do take a look at that. Before we finish up today, we'd like to just drop a very quick poll and gather your feedback on today's session. We did cover some very in-depth topics, being one, the configuration framework. We spoke about the steps for migration. We've also provided links to a lot of the new validated solution guides that have detailed instructions on how to migrate your sites over from Classic to Central. So please take a moment to complete our poll. We will be posting the recording and also the PowerPoint slides into the YouTube channel. And if you have particular features or capabilities that you would like us to touch on next time, either in the poll or put them into the chat. We listened to you from our last catch up, and it was very much around, I want to know more about how to migrate my floor plans and how to migrate my sites. So we're guided by you as to the topics for our next Power Up webinar, which will be in 2026. Okay, with that, thank you all for your time today. We hope you found it beneficial, and we look forward to connecting with you next time. Take care, everyone.